evolution involves generational change that has no end goal. I just want to make that clear before we start talking about today's episode. With that disclaimed, let's get to it, shall we?
Hit me.
The Outer Limits.
Our story begins with little blonde Riding Hood going to grandmother's house, but instead of finding the big bad wolf, she finds a geneticist who likes her bread so much he shows her his monkey. Get your head out of the gutter. The monkey, okay, he's actually an ape, Darwin, has been genetically altered to steal jobs from hard-working secretaries and paralegals. Impressed by his filing skills, the girl, Kathy, asks the scientist, Professor Mathers, if he can make her smarter than a monkey. After looking at her as creepily as possible, he takes her blood. Kathy then meets up with Willem, who is being harassed by his boss at work for inappropriate behavior toward miners. No, I mean actual miners, like people who work in the mines. You guys have dirty minds. Kathy and Willem are clearly in love with one another, despite the language barrier of Willem speaking only in the finest Welsh gibberish.
Down tools for me and I'm out of a job.
He pulls an Anakin and tries to hit on Kathy by telling her how much he wants to murder everybody, before they both return to the professor. The professor gives Kathy the bad news that making her smart is simply beyond the boundaries of science, but he does give a job to Willem by turning him into a guinea pig for his genetic experiments. After a quick shower, Willem steps into the professor's machine and emerges moments later, having become big brain by a process the professor insists on calling evolution. However, Willem is now not only smart enough to know what evolution actually is, he is more articulate, more psychic, and most importantly, more of an unrepentant dillweed with a newly enlarged forehead reflecting the size of his ego. While Kathy deals with unwanted advances by swatting at accordions, Willem continues to mutate, even developing a sixth finger and powerful telekinetic abilities. Unfortunately, I guess I was a bit quick to assume he knew the definition of evolution.
It's really quite simple. You released the mechanism of evolution, which is a self-generating force. It is now mutating under its own impetus.
Still, he's smart enough to realize that people suck, and so he murders the landlady for being scared, and then admits to the professor that he no longer considers humans to be worth all that much. Before he can execute Order 66 on the whole town, however, he quote-unquote evolves out of the desire for violence or destruction. Surely murdering a landlady and assaulting a police officer aren't big deals. He then tells Kathy to help him evolve even further, out of his corporeal form into what he considers the ultimate end goal of evolution, because it's not like he can use telekinesis to move a lever. Okay, now look, this guy is supposed to be ridiculously intelligent, but he doesn't anticipate how Kathy's going to react here. He even makes sure she understands to move the lever forward instead of backward, because backward would de-evolve him back to normal. I mean, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he knew that she was going to react that way, but the story's not written in a way that would make that clear. Anyway, Kathy, of course, uses the lever to evolve him backwards, which allows the special effects guys to show off the various makeups they'd employed throughout the episode. Willem emerges from the machine no worse for wear, and everybody lives happily ever after. Or at least until the cops arrive. Let me just say at the outset that I don't hate this episode, but I do have some problems with it. Of course, the gross misrepresentation of evolution bothers me, but I could forgive that if the story worked a little better. The big-headed Willem, though, never seems particularly intelligent, just more obnoxious, and the solution should have relied more on his own agency rather than Kathy's. It would have been far more satisfying if he figured out on his own what he had become and how to fix it, but instead, the story has to contrive a way for him to be defeated by a character already established as not particularly bright. In addition to the short story The Man Who Evolved, which is clearly the basis for this episode, the general premise is also used in other things like Flowers for Algernon, the John Travolta movie Phenomenon, and that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where Barclay becomes super intelligent, all of which are better written than this. It is therefore possible that my opinion is a bit tainted. Had I gone into this episode without knowing about those others, I might be able to appreciate it a lot more. Anyway, that's all I have on The Sixth Finger. Now, as always, do those YouTubey things and check out my Patreon and all that good stuff. But until next time, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love. As long as you're not hurting anybody.
Plain-faced liar, eh?
Plain-faced? Oh, I don't say plain-faced. I'd say, touchy.